My hand's good.
Sure. You run the lights, the dash cam starts recording.
Ken!
At the beginning of the film, we see former U.S. Marine Terry Richmond riding his bicycle, listening to metal music, when he is suddenly hit by a police car. Everything happened so quickly that he didn't even have time to react. He fell onto the asphalt, and within a second, one of the police officers pointed a gun at his head, ordering him not to move.
On the ground! Wait, hold on! You hit me!
Terry froze, not understanding what was happening. He was sure he hadn't done anything wrong. He was just riding along the road, enjoying the music in his headphones, and never expected to end up in such a situation. The officer stated that he was suspected of stealing the bicycle. He said he had chased Terry for 2 miles before stopping him. The officers put Terry in handcuffs and began searching his backpack. Terry tried to explain that he hadn't stolen anything and that this was his own bike, but the cops didn't listen. While his partner was checking Terry's information in the database, one of the officers approached and pulled out a suspicious package from the backpack.
Not Chinese food.
He asked for permission to search it, to which Terry replied a firm no. However, the cops opened the package without his consent, and inside they found stacks of dollars, more than $36,000.
It's a lot of cash you got on you.
It's not illegal.
The cops immediately suspected that this money was the proceeds from drug sales. Terry tried to explain again that this wasn't the case, but his words held no weight. The police, ignoring his explanations, continued to interrogate him. In reality, Terry was on his way to court, where he planned to post bail for his brother. It was $10,000, and the rest he planned to spend on buying a pickup truck. But he had little time left. The bail needed to be paid before 5 p.m., or his brother would remain in jail. After hearing his explanation, the cops agreed to let Terry go, but with one condition.
We're gonna hold on to this money. It concluded from our investigation that this is drug currency.
No.
Terry had sold a portion of his restaurant to get the money. He hadn't broken the law, but the cops weren't interested in listening to him. Now he would receive a court summons. If Terry responded to it, he would be arrested. If he ignored it, the money would simply stay with the cops. The officers removed his handcuffs.
You're pretty banged up. You need us to call you an ambulance?
No.
And wished him a good day. Finally, Terry arrived at the courthouse, but instead of money, he only had a seizure receipt. The secretary told him that she couldn't help him, and now his cousin would be transferred to state prison. Our hero started to lose his temper, and they told him to find more money to bail out his brother. This conversation was overheard by a lawyer named Summer, who volunteered to help. She explained that the seizure was legal. All it took was a suspicion of trafficking in prohibited substances. She also said that if he sued, his name wouldn't even appear in the lawsuit. Only the amount would be mentioned. Interestingly, the police chief could keep the entire amount as some sort of contribution.
Okay, but you can help me get it back.
No.
The man could go to court, but he would spend twice as much on a lawyer. Terry explained that his brother Michael had previously testified against a criminal boss, so he couldn't go to state prison. They would kill him immediately. In this situation, all Terry could do was find another $10,000 as soon as possible. He reached out to his former boss in the restaurant business, who promised to send the full amount via bank transfer.
How much? 10,000.
Terry found himself in a strange city, with no one he knew, forcing him to spend the night in the forest, hiding from the cold and bad weather. Despite the hardships in the morning, he decided to go to the police station to file a report about the incident. There, he began to describe the officers who had arrested him, their actions, but unexpectedly Officer Sims left her desk and returned with one of the officers who had detained him, Officer Lon. Without letting Terry finish, Lan threw him his ID and roughly ordered him to leave the station, threatening to arrest him for making false accusations. At that moment, Police Chief Sandy Byrne intervened, stating that the detention was carried out lawfully and emphasized that Terry had been treated with due respect. However, according to him, if Terry continued to insist on his accusations, he would face criminal prosecution for interfering with police actions.
If you'd be so kind as to cut off your recording device and exit my station.
Realizing that the situation might be worse than he had expected, Terry decided to offer a compromise. He asked for at least $10,000 back for the bail, while he was willing to forget about the remaining $26,000, which, in his opinion, wasn't worth discussing further. The police chief, having listened to his offer, became interested and agreed, Moreover, he even allowed Terry to meet with his cousin on Monday at 10 a.m. to discuss the next steps.
Thank you.
Terry had to spend another night in the rain in the forest. In the morning, he went to the station, but when he arrived, he found out that Byrne had lied to him. The bus with prisoners had already left. Terry went through the forest to cut across and catch the bus. He managed to do it. On the way, he asked Mike to request an arrest. Everyone already knew who he was, and he was in danger. Terry said goodbye to his brother. When Terry learned that his former boss couldn't help him, he found himself in an even more difficult situation. It turned out that because of his statement, the police had raided the restaurant where his boss worked under the pretext of investigating drug sales. During the search, they seized the safe with the proceeds. Terry once again turned to Samber, but she was also under pressure. The young woman, realizing that her job was now at risk, decided to act secretly, not wanting to lose everything. The lawyer, continuing the investigation, soon discovered that the case was indeed shady. Michael's bail had been set unusually high, and they had also given him a 90-day delay, which was rare for such cases. This was just one of many similar instances, and she was determined to continue her investigation, despite the fact that she was already being watched. Samber was risking everything, but for her, there was no other way. Meanwhile, the police discovered that Terry had served in the Marine Corps and held the rank of corporal, although he had no combat experience. This information slightly calmed the chief, as his suspicions about Terry's persistence were growing stronger. Police Chief Sandy Byrne was pleased that he had tricked Terry, and now he was even more outraged that Terry had dared to negotiate and set conditions in his precinct.
Checking up on me.
What were you, motor pool?
No, put him for infantry, but they found a use for me stateside.
Now good for them.
Terry calmly explained to the stunned police chief that he had backed him into a corner, and now he would have to act differently. He communicated in the same manner as the chief of police.
I got an acronym.
Allow me to finish.
At that moment, Officer Sims found information that Terry had been an instructor. He was a skilled hand-to-hand combat master. After hearing this, one of the cops pulled out a gun and ordered to call in all available units.
Let's not do that.
Byrne also drew his gun, but Terry easily took it from him and unloaded it. He pretended to take the chief hostage, then disarmed Elan. The Marine quickly took down the cops and entered the police station with them. Terry ripped the phone cord out and ordered the hostages to sit down. The chief said that no one else was in the station, but Terry didn't believe him. On the floor in the next room, Officer Sims was hiding. She handed over her gun and handcuffed her colleagues. Afterward, Terry sent the woman to the evidence room to retrieve his money.
Count out 10K. Deal's a deal.
A crowd of armed cops had gathered around the building, so Terry ordered the police officer to pretend she had arrested him. Sims put the Marine in the car and showed the passing officer 4 fingers, which signified Code 4. Terry instructed Sims to report that the alleged criminal had escaped, handed her his gun, and then got on a bicycle and headed to the courthouse. The cops were already searching for him in the city. Finally, he posted bail for Michael. Meanwhile, Samber quickly went to the judge to sign the release papers. Everything was dragging on, and Terry knew the cops would show up soon. He shared his plan with Samber to surrender and go to jail with his brother.
Barely broke the skin. Think it good, huh? Think they'll send me to where he's at.
A minute later, a police squad stormed the building. They ordered Terry to get on his knees and immediately shot him with a taser. Terry held back the pain and pulled the taser out of the cop's hands, but he was knocked to the floor. After being checked by a paramedic, one of the cops said they would take him to the station. Terry replied that by law, they should first take him to court. The cop explained that the chief wanted to see him. They were heading to the station. The police chief got in the car. He admitted that he wouldn't have gotten involved with Terry if he had known who he was. The soldier remembered seeing a pile of cash and a serious arsenal of weapons at their warehouse. Byrne explained that they didn't get proper funding, so the cops had to come up with ways to earn money themselves. The car stopped near the hospital. Byrne threw the remaining $26,000 on the ground and took Terry's handcuffs off. He then informed Terry that Michael had been attacked and badly cut in the holding cell. Byrne said they had already bought him a pickup truck as compensation for the spent bail and offered Terry a choice: take the money and leave or face 30 years in prison. He wouldn't get a second chance.
All you gotta do is nothing.
What am I gonna say?
You say okay.
The injured brother was brought in by helicopter, and Terry went to see him, but Michael died in the hospital without regaining consciousness. Terry took his belongings from the forest and got into Summer's car, who agreed to drive him. They were being followed by a police car. The woman found dozens of cases where the bail didn't match the crime. All the detainees were intentionally kept in jail for 90 days. Why would the cops do that? But Terry no longer cared. He just wanted to get out of the city. Just in case, Terry left Summer his phone number. That night, cops broke into the lawyer's house, injected her with drugs, and threw the syringe in the sink. Dazed, the woman almost called the police, but then snapped out of it and called Terry. He arrived at her house in the pickup truck he had bought and found Summer in the bathroom. The woman was in a custody battle for her child, and she could lose her daughter if this information came to light. The cops knew how to pressure the lawyer. She had used drugs before and was also involved in a criminal case for stealing her father-in-law's lawnmower. Summer went to work. In court, they had already heard that she had snapped the night before, and they immediately forced her to give a urine sample. Summer realized she had lost both her job and her child. Terry hoped to remain unnoticed, but Officer Land got on his tail and ordered him to pull over. A little further ahead, 2 more police cars stopped. Terry promised that he wouldn't return again, just that today there had been an emergency.
Chief handed you a win lotto ticket, and you just tore it up.
At that moment, Land threw a gun in the car and tried to shoot Terry, but only wounded him in the arm. Terry knocked the cop out with a taser. The cops rushed to help, shooting at Terry's pickup, but they didn't hit the driver. He managed to escape. The sad Summer watched her daughter at the shelter when a police car came to pick her up. Terry hid the pickup under a bridge and called Summer. It turned out that the woman had a friend in the police, and he advised her to get out of the city as soon as possible. So she was already packing her things. She was also told to stay away from Terry, but she ignored the advice and met with the fugitive at his old workplace in the restaurant. The boss, Mr. Liu, was just pulling a bullet out of him. Terry was lucky that Mr. Liu had been a doctor during the Korean War.
Thank you for your service, sir.
He's Chinese. Fought for the other side.
It's good we can all come together.
Terry realized that they had decided to get rid of them quietly, or else they would have called in the special forces. It was all about Summer's investigation. The cops decided to eliminate the witnesses. He says the cops set this up, and now Terry wants to hunt these criminals in uniforms. Summer turned to a fellow lawyer. He didn't say anything directly, but hinted that she should visit the judge. Terry did just that.
Jesus. There's no need to hurt me.
The old man says he was protecting Summer. He claims it all started when the police killed an innocent man. The resulting lawsuit nearly bankrupted the city, and ever since, the city's been refilling its budget through Chief Burns' shady schemes. The whole town benefits from it. People who get arrested and can't afford the massive bail amounts are always kept behind bars for exactly 90 days. The charges are so minor that they're not even eligible for a public defender, and by law, body cam footage can legally be erased after 90 days. So by the time those days are up, there's no way to prove anything. That's exactly what happened to Michael. The cops pulled something shady to get him locked up. The footage of his arrest is stored on a hard drive kept in the courthouse basement. That night, the cops decided to destroy all the evidence and set the storage room on fire. There were too many hard drives to save them all, but Summer remembered the SD cards from the body cams. About 20 had been collected over the past week. One of them had the footage of Michael. After that, Summer ran to the courthouse to retrieve her urine test results. That's when the cops grabbed her. Terry was waiting for her at the main entrance and saw them shove her into a squad car. They stopped briefly near his car. Terry rammed into them, pulled the officer out of the vehicle, and handcuffed him. Then he used the cop's phone to call Lane. They agreed to trade Summer for the SD cards at dawn. But when Lane showed up at the meeting spot with a fully armed team of Marines, Terry never arrived. Instead, Marston tracked his car down on a bridge and smashed one of the windows, only to find a gagged and bound cop in the driver's seat. Meanwhile, Terry had broken into the evidence room at the police station. He outsmarted the chief and shot him multiple times with a non-lethal shotgun.
And I know you wouldn't show up to your own show.
Then he disarmed Officer Sims. He had already figured out that she was the one secretly helping Summer. "Sit down," he says. Terry handed the flash drives to Officer Sims and put on his bulletproof vest. If anything happened to Samber, he would burn all the money along with the precinct. Suddenly, Sims aimed her gun at Terry and declared that she wouldn't let anyone die today. Terry stepped outside and threw the bag with weapons to the ground. Sims handed all the cards to Lan, who trampled them. The villain had drugged Samber and was about to execute Terry. But suddenly, his partner, Marston, spoke up. He was going to arrest Terry and take Samber to the hospital as quickly as possible. Our hero realized he had made a mistake. Samber's friend wasn't Sims. It was Marston. But the police chief shot the man in the leg, and it was such a poor shot that he started losing a lot of blood. The cops argued about whether they should call an ambulance. At that moment, Terry dragged Marston behind the car. Sims still didn't shoot him. The Marine began tossing flashbangs at the cops. Marston suggested Terry grab the footage from the police car's dash cam. It showed that it was the police chief who shot him. Terry filled the parking lot with smoke and went to deal with the cops hand to hand. He broke and knocked out everyone in sight. He knocked Lon out with particular brutality, working his elbow into his face. Terry jumped into the right car, and inside was Samber. The soldier administered the right overdose medicine to her and tossed her into Marston's car. When he got behind the wheel, Lon approached the car, wanting to shoot, but the gun was unloaded. Terry was about to get as far away from the station as possible, but Lon grabbed onto the car. Just then, Samber came to her senses and got rid of the hitchhiker. Now, they needed to deliver the footage where it needed to go. The dash cam was in the trunk. They couldn't escape the pursuit. The car had a flat tire. Sims and the chief had agreed to make a maneuver to stop the fugitives, but instead, Sims rammed the police chief's car. She reported over the radio that she had crashed the chief's car, and the state police were already waiting for them. The other cops decided not to attack the car with the wounded officer, and allowed him to safely drive to the hospital with an escort. Sims pointed her gun at the chief. Terry carried Samber into the hospital in his arms, then grabbed a fire axe and used it to pull the dash cam from the trunk.